All right, my next video is going to be a review of Latin nouns. And if you didn't watch the verbs video above or in the previous section, I am including the page numbers in our Green Latin 3 book at the top of these slides so that you can use them as another reference if you think that'll be useful throughout the reviewing process. But let's jump into nouns. A lot of what you see on the slide right now is stuff from Latin 1. We learned the nominative and the accusative cases very early on in Latin 1. We learned the dative case at the end of Latin 1 and saw it throughout last year in Latin 2. But the genitive case is a case that's kind of brand new to us. We had just learned the genitive case before the shutdown in March. And so I'll talk about that very briefly here. So just a quick review of the ones that we kind of know well already. The nominative case is the doer of an action or the topic of the sentence, the subject of a particular sentence. The accusative case is a direct object or the receiver of the action, whom the action is being done to in a Latin sentence. The dative case expresses an indirect object or the receiver of the receiver, kind of like a bounce off of the accusative case, as I'll show you in an example now. The example I used in Latin 1 in their review video to explain the dative was the sentence, Quintus shows the discus to his friends. In this sentence, the nominative case is Quintus, all right? He's the one doing the showing. The accusative case is the discus. It's the thing that is being shown. And in the sentence, the friends are in the dative case. They're not really directly receiving the action. It's not like Quintus is showing his friends to anyone, but kind of indirectly the action showing happens to the friends or affects them in some way. With the dative case, remember that there are some certain verbs that you often see it with, like the verb to give, to tell, and as in my example, to show. Think about it. You often say that you give something to someone, you tell something like a story to someone, or you show something to someone. In those examples, the to someone would be the dative case in Latin. And finally, the genitive case is what we learned in stage 17 right before the shutdown at the end of Latin 2. It expresses possession like that apostrophe s or an s apostrophe sense for singular and plural, like Quintus's friend, or it's translated as of, like the port of Alexandria would be encapsulated in the genitive case. And so just to bring these back, all right, obviously endings express how a word functions or its case. And so these are the fleshed out charts that we learned. You see that the cases are right down the side here. Regardless of the declension, they don't change. Nominative's a subject in all three declensions. Accusative's a direct object in all three declensions. Genitive is that possession, and dative is that indirect object sense. Regardless, it's just the different groups, the first, the second, the third declension, those different groups of Latin nouns will use different endings to express them. So I think you're kind of familiar with most of these endings, but I do want to put a little bit of an emphasis on the genitive case itself. It's that apostrophe s, s apostrophe, or of sense. Remember that a lot of the genitive case is reused, all right? In the genitive singular in the first declension, it's AE, but the first declension has two other AEs. It's a lot of context that's going to determine whether you translate it as two or four, of, or just a plural subject when it comes to AE. Same thing with I. There's two letter I's as endings in the second declension. It's either of one person or more than one person doing the action. Genitive singular versus nominative plural. Again, context is important for that. And then you kind of see some of them that apply to other declensions like is and is, and They're totally different things. This is genitive singular. This is dative plural. This is genitive plural. This is accusative singular. It gets tricky, and this is one of the things that becomes difficult about Latin is sorting all this out. Again, context will help you. Really, all I want you to know about this is that the endings AE, I, is, and can be that apostrophe s apostrophe or of sense, in addition to the to or for, the plurals that we see here. All right, they're receiving the action from previous lessons. The only thing about the genitive that's nice and convenient is that the endings arum and orum are always of the whatevers. Feminarum is of the women. Servorum is of the slaves. Arum and orum give us a nice, easy shortcut for the genitive, is always of the whatevers or s apostrophe. My last video here will be on just some miscellaneous stuff from Latin 1 and 2, and then we'll be moving right along here and wrapping up stage 19.